Hey everyone, we need to discuss tariffs really quick. And I say quick because I feel miserable. I got an allergy shot today and they increased the potency of the vials and it was quite a doozy. So make this very fast. Obviously tariffs have been in the news quite a bit and the focus seems to be on the fact that tariffs are going to raise prices. And that is absolutely true. Tariffs will lead to inflation. That's what they've done for hundreds of years. So that is accurate. But there are other problems that need to be addressed too. Some, I would argue, are bigger. The argument for tariffs is that it's going to be short-term pain that is going to lead to long-term benefits. In particular, will bring back manufacturing into the United States, and it'll help manufacturing companies, but it'll also help workers and will bring back manufacturing jobs. And that is not true. The United States has been going through what's called deindustrialization since the 1970s. That is the continuous decline in the number of manufacturing jobs, while simultaneously there's an increase in manufacturing productivity and output. How is that possible? It's because when it comes to manufacturing jobs, the overwhelming focus is on what's called offshoring, or sending jobs to countries that have low wages, especially China and Mexico. However, that's not where most of the manufacturing jobs have been lost. Most of them have been lost to automation. Automation is giving it to machines and having machines do it. Instead of an individual putting on the lug nuts one by one, you have a machine that just puts them all on at once. This is not speculation either. We know the numbers. Offshoring has only accounted for about 10 to 20% of jobs lost in manufacturing. Automation is responsible for about 80 to 90% of jobs lost, the vast majority. So even if manufacturing comes back to the United States and businesses get more manufacturing, they're not going to be hiring workers. They're going to move more and more to automation because workers have this annoying habit of wanting to unionize and going to the bathroom. Machines don't. So there's not going to be manufacturing jobs brought back. Well, I take it back. There will be some, which leads to the second reason tariffs is such a bad idea. Last time tariffs were passed, what we saw is this big deal made about these individual companies that were bringing jobs back. There will be, like Tesla is going to bring in 200 manufacturing jobs, and places like Fox News and stuff like that are just promoting why this is such a great idea will give you these individual examples to show that, look, there are jobs being brought back. However, in the grand scheme of things, those don't matter in the slightest bit. And they don't matter in the slightest bit because right now, 2025, the U.S. labor force is 170.7 million people. Of that, about 12.7 are in manufacturing, which is about 9%. So about 9% of the entire 170.7 million people in the labor force are in manufacturing, which is a very, very small amount. And even if we're being just insanely optimistic as you can possibly get, and say 10,000 more manufacturing jobs are going to come into the United States, and that is absolutely not going to happen. That is way too much. But for argument's sake, 10,000 manufacturing jobs will be brought back in. That, when compared, or when put in the context of the labor force, that is only 0.00006% increase in the amount of jobs. That's nothing. that is like pittance. That is not going to do anything to change the U.S. economy. Well, in fact, it'll make the economy worse. Get to that in a second. But 10,000, which is overly generous, is such a small, tiny little bit that it's not going to greatly increase the labor or the job market at all, especially when you take into consideration that in the last 2 months, more than 100,000 federal employees have been fired. But besides that, even in the private sector, 2024, we had more companies, more corporations file for Chapter 11 than we've had in 14 years. It's over 300 companies. There were some very big name ones that everyone noticed, like Express and Big Lots Container Store, Applebee's, Red Lobster, but there's so many more. There are just tons of jobs being lost. And so even if the most optimistic number you can think of that is going to, of manufacturing jobs to come in, which they won't because of automation, it's not going to make a difference. Which brings me to the third reason this is just a terrible idea, is we don't even want to go back to manufacturing in the first place. Right now we're living through an economic and technological revolution. And the problem with economic revolutions is that there are always people left behind. When there's a new technology, it's called creative destruction, or Schumpeter's Gale in economics. New technology will replace old ones, and there will be a lot of people that will be left behind. So, for example, when the railroad was created and started connecting the country, people that made carriages went out of business. And so whenever there is an economic and technological revolution, there are always people left behind. This one in particular that we're going through, where we've gone from a manufacturing-based economy to a knowledge services economy, especially digital, is just unparalleled in human history in the amount of jobs being lost. You know, one person creates an app like Uber, and all of a sudden, people have been taxi drivers their whole lives. Their livelihood is threatened. So this one in particular is really transformative, and we cannot go back, but we don't want to anyway. Just the attempt of trying to stop the economic revolution and trying to remain a manufacturing-based economy is going to hurt the country. It's going to hurt the economy. And every time there is a revolution like this, soft revolution they're called, there are people that try to stop it. It happens every single time, and when they have some success, it is terrible for the country and terrible for the overall economy. And there are cases of it. Luddites are the famous example of people that destroyed looms because they wanted to make sure they could hand sew everything because looms were going to take a lot of jobs. But it doesn't help the country. The countries that do the best are the ones that adapt to the new technology, to the new economy, and adapt and change for it. So even the attempt to try to stop the revolution from happening, try to go back, is a terrible idea. Fun fact, the United States, it could have become the economic superpower of the world way earlier than it did. It was like 1870 when it did, had it not been for Jefferson and the other Southerners trying to hold it back and keep it a agricultural-based economy. That's why after the Civil War, all of a sudden, the manufacturing just skyrocketed because Southerners had voluntarily taken themselves out of the Union and they lost political power. They lost the grip they had on the Senate that was stopping changes to become the country that Hamilton was calling for. So what we're basically seeing is, like in the second industrial revolution, in the 1890s, a bunch of angry farmers got together and formed the Populist Party, tried to stop the United States from progressing into the manufacturing and industrial superpower that it was. It's people trying to stop the change from happening. It is bad for the country overall. It's going to be ineffective. And this is a brief version of why tariffs are such a terrible idea. If anything I said is wrong, please let me know. I'm always open to, if I'm given good information, good facts, I will look at them and I will assess my position, and I will always change it if I am wrong about something. You have to have facts though, no just saying stuff, and definitely no memes or like nothing like no like social media memes. That shit pisses me off so much.